Welcome to REI Partners. We help everyday people build wealth through real estate. Learn, invest, grow. Follow us to start your journey. Disclaimer. This show is provided solely for informational and educational purposes. It is not financial, investment, legal, or tax advice, nor tailored to your individual circumstances. Laws and regulations may vary and can change at any time. Always consult qualified professionals before making decisions. Presenters, guests, sponsors, and advertisers assume no liability for any losses resulting from reliance on this information. You are solely responsible for your own actions and decisions. And welcome to REI Partners Live. I'm your host, Matthew James, small business owner, real estate investor. I'm joined today by John Wargo, none other than another REI partner. John, why don't you introduce yourself and our sponsor for today?
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'm John Wargo. I have been an investor since 2003. I am also an investment realtor here in Pennsylvania. And we want to thank our sponsor this evening, Sean McPhillamy from Contour Mortgage. Sean has helped us tremendously in this area with a lot of our investment clients. Might have had a really strange situation, and Sean was always able to work through and get the deal done for us. So thanks a lot, Sean. I appreciate you.
I think Sean was doing some non-QM stuff too, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah. Yep. So for those that are looking to find that product that you just can't get off the shelf, Sean's a great guy to help you.
Sean, thanks for sponsoring today's episode. So our topic for today is going to be defining your why. John, would you wager to say that defining your why is equally or perhaps even more important than the how of obtaining your goal?
Absolutely. If you can define your why, the how will come. And it's the why is the most important thing. You can't even get started unless you know your why.
Would you mind sharing your why with everyone?
Sure. I was working probably 70 to 80 hours a week. I had an hour and a half drive in the morning, hour and a half drive at night, and I had no family time. And my why was to create some family time for myself. And that was in 2003. And I started taking a look at real estate as a income generator that would enable me in the near future to get out of a W-2 job. And within 8 months after, I didn't retire. It didn't totally replace my income, but it gave me enough. The guy that I sat down with, he was 25 years old, had 4 properties. And this is what kind of made me think, well, here I am 40 years old. Why don't I have any properties? Said to me, if you could have $2,500 and I made you every month, $2,500 a month, and I made you spend that in this way, $500 extra on a car, $500 extra on housing, $500 extra on debt reduction, $500 on a vacation, and $500 as an investment, what would you do? He goes, tell me what you would do. Would you still be driving the same car with $500 extra? Like, no, I'm paying $300, $800. I'd probably be in a Mercedes or something. $500 in housing, I could bump up to a bigger home. If I put $500 more towards a mortgage. Debt reduction, had a couple credit cards, could have paid those off in a few months. $5,000 or $500 a month for a vacation. That's $6,000. I could take a couple nice vacations for that.
Yeah.
And then $500 for investments per month. Doesn't sound like a lot, but over 30 years, $500 a month, just at 4% is like $345,000.
Yeah, the seventh wonder of the world there, compound interest.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. Or take the $2,500 and have your forever home.
Mm-hmm.
That got me thinking that only $2,500 a month could really impact the way we were living. And from then we went into a restaurant, found out that a friend of ours was selling a 6-unit. And at that point, the how didn't matter. We figured out a way to do it.
That's actually a really good exercise. I think that he puts you through without you even thinking about it or knowing about it. It's like, kind of making you define your own why just with the lifestyle change, right?
Yeah.
Would you like to have a better car? Would you like to have more
vacation time, more time to yourself? Would you like to have a better retirement account, right? It's kind of putting you through all the paces of the potential whys that you might be interested in investing.
Yeah.
I know for me personally, the why was to really kind of be a different trajectory from what I saw my parents, right? Both hardworking, one small business owner, another a family business, and did really well for themselves until, the later portion of their life. And they didn't really have a whole lot planned as far as retirement was concerned. And so that was the goal, was to kind of separate my path from theirs in that
Yeah.
regard. Looks like we have a question from our audience, or from Ashley.
We do have a question from the audience, and they are asking, how can someone use their why to stay focused and avoid shiny object syndrome in real estate?
That's a great question. And I think I'm going to kind of tag into our next topic 2 weeks from today, which is delayed gratification. And I think the two go very much hand in hand. Is avoiding shiny object syndrome is a very difficult proposition. So using, or defining your why, you're creating this big prize at the end of the road, and keeping your eyes on that prize is a lot easier when you have tangible and real steps to get there. If it's just a pipe dream, oh man, I'd love to have $5 million one day, with no actionable way to get there, it's going to be very difficult to maintain focus, to make the hard decisions, go through the daily motions to get there. But if you have that plan, and step by step you have ways to get there, the baby steps, then you're going to be able to avoid those fleeting and flashy items that might get you distracted, or the materialistic possessions. Do you agree, John?
I do. And there's no difference than a relationship. When you met your spouse and you decided that you were going to go for it, you let nothing get in your way. And you just kind of kept your eye on the prize and kept moving until you got married, right?
That was a good question. So let's talk about, that's a great segue to talk about the reasons why people get into real estate. What are some of the most common whys? Everybody's different, and everybody's going to have their own nuance and subtlety to it. But there are definitely a few common denominators here as far as why a lot of people get into real estate, and how they define their why. So the first one on the top of my head is going to be time freedom, right? That's one that we see very frequently, whether you're 24 years old or you're 64 years old. Time is a finite resource, and real estate has been a method that has been proven to allow you to capture back some of that time if done correctly. John, I think, that was kind of your story as well, was that commute to and from, and trying to avoid that. How has that affected your life, having some of that time freedom?
It was actually affecting my health. Being in a car for 3 hours a day was not doing my back.
I would imagine.
Very good, right? So yeah, I mean, not only did that improve it, but yeah, the biggest hurdle that I see with most people looking to get their time freedom back is they're very willing to throw 8 hours, 9 hours to a W-2 job, and then say that they don't have time to build their own dynasty.
Yep.
When it would only take maybe an hour or two or three a night, or a couple hours a week to go look at some properties, and it's they're willing to sacrifice that time freedom and stay shackled to a 40, 50 hour a week job.
Yeah, it's kind of again, that delayed gratification, our next topic in 2 weeks, but it's kind of, hey, can we work harder now in the near term and lay the groundwork that 5 years, 7 years, 15 years from now, things are a lot easier, because we're not working a 40-hour work week for, some corporate job with golden handcuffs. We're deciding how we spend our time doing what we want to do. And we've done that because we put in the effort on the front end to secure a steady and reliable income stream that replaces that W-2 job. So time freedom, that's definitely one of the big whys. I mean, that directly ties into financial freedom as well, right? The two are really, in my mind, they're hand in hand, because you can't have financial freedom and time freedom. Put it this way, you can't have time freedom without financial freedom, unless you want to be living, very low below your means. You want to kind of have a very basic life, and that's fine. There's some people that, that's all they want or they aspire to. But generally speaking, to live the average middle class American lifestyle, right, and to have your time freedom, you're going to have financial freedom. And in order to do that, you have to have income. And income could come in the form of the W-2 that you mentioned, or a 1099, or it could come in the form of a Schedule C or a K-1
Right.
partnership or your own business. So let's talk about financial independence, right, and passive income. I think one misnomer that a lot of people have about real estate is that it is just solely passive. Like it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to buy this property and then I'm
The
done.
money flows in.
Yeah. And I think nothing could be further from the truth. Right now, I think you get to a certain point and you get to be a certain level of experience and the right network and the right vendors in place. It can be dramatically reduced, right? But at the end of the day, you're running a business.
Yeah.
And running a business is never simple, easy, and it's always filled with obstacles and random challenges that pop up. So that's something I wanted to point out, is that although we're talking about getting time free, we're talking about getting financial independence here, that it doesn't necessarily come with set it and forget it type of situation.
But I will say that I think it gives you the opportunity to do it on your schedule a little bit better than even the random things that pop up. You could still schedule it or have a property manager take care of it, or there's ways around it.
Definitely. A lot of things become much more on your terms
Exactly.
than someone else's,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, I think we have another question.
We absolutely do. The question is, how can someone define their why when they're stuck in survival mode, just trying to make ends meet?
That's a great question. That's a hard one, right? Because you get into that fight or flight type of response mode, and you can't see past the edge of your nose because you're, drowning in the daily, whether it's financially or just responsibility. Hey, you've got kids, maybe you're a single mom, or you're living paycheck to paycheck, or you've got a major medical expense. There's, so many things in our lives that can happen, or circumstances we find ourselves in. So how do you get out of that and define your why? In my mind, it's the most simple way to explain it for me would be dare to dream, right? Dreaming is never going to hurt or harm you. And so if you can find a few spare minutes to leave the daily grind, get away from the stress of whatever your circumstances are, and think and dream about what your ideal life would be. For a lot of people, it's not $20 million in a yacht, right? A dream could be, hey, I'm not worrying about living paycheck to paycheck. Hey, I've got good food on the table. My family's taken care of. I'm taking care of my parents or my kids. They're very realistic and obtainable. And so dream that dream. And then once you can solidify and perfect it in your mind of what this looks like, then take the easy wins. How can I get there? What are the easy wins step by step that are going to help me facilitate that? That's kind of my answer. I don't know, John, if you have anything to add to that.
I do. And it's probably not always the most comfortable. The guy that was my mentor, although 20 years my junior, moved every 2 years. He house hacked. So he got a 2-unit, lived in one half of it, rented the other half, did that for 2 years, and then did the same thing, went to 3-unit and a 4-unit. And that's how he did it. Was it uncomfortable? Yeah. Was he living paycheck to paycheck for a little bit? Yeah. But he always had that other rent, and then those other 2 rents, and then those other 3 rents that kept growing every month. So it was and I think you're going to probably talk about this in a little bit, it was the education that he was receiving that helped him, although he had no time, no money, and not a whole lot of life experience being 22 years old. He had just graduated from Lafayette. So yeah, he just developed a plan and worked the plan. things that he had to do were uncomfortable, and things that I did were uncomfortable. And yeah, I had a couple sleepless nights.
That's how you know I think that's how you know you're doing it though, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, because we as a species tend to like to be comfortable,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's probably an inherent trait of just being an animal.
It
right?
is, but in that also comes the uncomfortable feeling of guilt.
Sure,
It's
you
like,
are
oh, here
comfortable.
I am sitting here watching TV
Doing
and eating
nothing.
bonbons.
Yep,
Yeah.
not being productive,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that you know you're doing something right. You know you're onto it when you are uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? And to your point with education, right? So education was something for me that became the first major hurdle or obstacle in order to achieve my why or work towards my why. It's like, yeah, it's great. Well, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I don't want to have the same retirement as my parents. I don't want to end up, with debt and not being able to retire at an early age. Well, how do I get there? Well, buy some real estate. Great. That sounds easy,
Mhm.
right? Well, how do I do that? How do I find a property? What kind of loans are available? What kind of credit do I need? How much money do I need? How do I manage it? There's so many pieces that are involved here. So education was the big obstacle for me. It was like to get started on that. And at first it was just small stuff. It was like listening to Bigger Pockets and, reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Yep.
and the same thing that you hear from a lot of people. Those are the baby steps. And so that I think ties back into our question about, how can you keep your eyes on the prize when you're struggling to survive on a daily basis? Dream the dream and then make it digestible, start educating. And when you get that far, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be unpleasant, but you're seeing actionable steps. And once you see like the proof is in the pudding, it becomes easier.
Yeah.
Right.
The one thing that I've told a lot of our clients, the best way to walk through a minefield is to step directly in the steps of the person who successfully crossed it before you did. Right.
Yep.
If they made it through and you do the exact same thing they do, you're going to make it through as well. So I would recommend also getting a mentor.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of people that would be willing to help you, whether it be just on the education portion,
Mhm.
whether it be on the actual, finding the real estate, evaluating the real estate, or whether it be actually partnering monetarily and say, hey, you manage it, I'll give you some money for it. And it's a way to get your foot in the door and start creating.
Well, John, we're going to put your cell phone number in the chat for all of those things. So
Yeah,
you
I
guys
appreciate
can
that.
get a hold of John for all of your mentorship and investing needs. So let's go back to some of our other whys. Another big one is the generational wealth, right? That's something you see more and more of, especially with the divide of equity in the United States with, the rich and the middle class and the poor. So generational wealth is a big one. And it always, in my experience, it always takes the one person to break the mold for the family, right? It takes that one person that suffers, struggles, learns, works their butt off, invests, and sets everything up and breaks the paradigm
Yep.
for the family. And so that's a definitely a big why for a lot of people is they want to be that person. They want to change the trajectory of their family, of their lineage. And actually, speaking personally, I am that person, and so my great grandfather was that person, and it did create generational wealth, and then usually it gets to the third generation, right?
Yep.
And think some things happen. So now I'm trying to be that person again. So that's also another why for me.
Mhm.
Career exit strategy, another why. Lifestyle flexibility, impact and purpose. So lifestyle flexibility in my mind is very much tied to the time freedom, the financial freedom, right? It's allowing you to do what you want to do, when you want to do it, with who you want to do. Impact and purpose, that's another one. A lot of times we see people later in life. What's their legacy? What are they going to leave behind? What impact or change have they made to the world?
When you say later in life, you look directly at me. What's that?
I was just, my eyes were just drawn to the
old guy in the
old
room.
guy in the room, So, those can all be your why. And it can be a combination or a hybrid of all of those or some of those. So we talked a little bit about our personal motivations. You mentioned, John, like your why really seemed to click for you when you had this junior mentor tell you about your $2,500 a month and what could this do. For me personally, it clicked when I think the biggest thing was seeing where my parents were at and then realizing how much I didn't know. And getting back to that education piece, they don't teach you this in high school, right? Maybe some schools they do now, which is fantastic, but I didn't know anything about retirement or investing in real estate or an IRA or a 401k. I knew nothing. So for me, that's when it really clicked, was that, wow, I can learn all of this, put all these things together, and this is what most people don't know, and how I can leverage that to kind of change the trajectory. That has evolved. My why has evolved. And I think it's important to acknowledge
should.
that, right? It needs to evolve. And what it is today is going to be different tomorrow, as it's going to be different 5, 10, 20 years from now. And that's okay. I think a lot of people get stuck on, this is my why and this is what I'm working towards. And then they get disenfranchised because they go, I don't even really want that anymore.
Yeah.
Why have I have been doing this for nothing? I don't care about that. And they're not reworking the why, right? So today could be the why is, hey, I want to be able to retire at age 55. And you got Ricky Rentroll, who's 32 years old and he wants to retire at 55. And Ricky makes it to 40 and he goes, you know what? I don't want to retire. I just want to work for myself. I want to have a business. I want to do consulting. I want to do this. Well, if Ricky doesn't change his why, he's going to stop investing and he's going to stop following that path because it doesn't align with what his long-term goals are. So you have to acknowledge that your why does evolve, and it's okay. And it should be evolving. Let's talk a little bit about the warning signs of not following your why or not having a why. I know some people like this, personally, and it generally doesn't end well, right? And not like catastrophic, life is over type of end well, but I've seen a lot of other content creators in the business and entrepreneurship space talk about this cycle of entrepreneurs where you see these 23-year-olds that have been in 14 different startups, right? And it's because they start out as optimistically uninformed, right? Oh my God, look at, we should do this. It's going to be so easy. And it's going to be great. They very quickly get, punched in the mouth with reality. And then they go, oh man, this is so much more difficult. What about that thing over there? Oh, let's go try that. Right. So shiny object syndrome. We talk about that a lot. That is definitely a big one, right? Bouncing from one strategy to another, not really having a buy box defined, just kind of jumping all over the place. A lot of times that doesn't end well. Another big one that you hear a lot about is analysis paralysis, right? Just being too scared to take any risk or any steps, and you just get stuck and you don't want to leap.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have said or do say that, it's better to just take the risk and take the step and, see what happens than to never know.
Yeah. Another pitfall that I see with that is, if you don't take the steps now, at some point in your life, you're going to feel so desperate or against the wall, or there's going to be a life-changing event such as a layoff or something, and you haven't done anything yet. That's where you get into trouble, because you start making rash decisions. You just can't take the job anymore and you quit. And then you say, you know what, I'm going to do real estate full time. And they say, well, what's your W-2 income like? And you go, well, I just left last week.
Yeah.
Right. Have a plan, and rely on some mentors to help you come up with the plan so that it's a safe journey across the minefield.
I think we had another question.
How can someone recognize or identify that they've fallen into that comfort zone instead of growth?
Do you get 8 hours of sleep a night? If you do, you're lulled into that comfort zone.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a different definition of what comfort is and what, discomfort is. But if you're not scared at all, ever, I would say you're definitely in your comfort zone, right? If you're not getting hit with that little bump of adrenaline because you're doing something that you haven't done before, that's making you feel out of place, that you feel like there's a risk, you feel like you might fail, you might be judged. Those are all things that I would say indicate that you are being comfortable and you're not, going outside of your comfort zone. I think that's a pretty clear indication. You're probably not growing. And you talk to people in all different walks, all different industries. The easiest one to draw it to is, talk about like Schwarzenegger and bodybuilding, no pain, no gain, right? That there's a reason that is the saying. And it doesn't necessarily have to be physical pain. It can be mental pain. It can be, stress, financial stress, or stress on your relationships. If you're doing those things, or you're doing uncomfortable things, chances are you're going to have those stressors. Yeah. Now, there are plenty of things in life that can cause those things that are not related to making the right decisions and investing and doing things like that nature. But if you're not talking about your finances with your spouse or your partner or your significant other, if you're not, arguing over we shouldn't buy this car, we shouldn't go to the movie because we're over budget. If you're not having those conversations, I would say that you're definitely in the comfort zone and you're happy to be there. And that's okay. If that's what you're looking for, if comfort is life to you, by all means, go for it. Yep. The question is, could you be even more comfortable down the road if you made some hard decisions and put in some
a little
hard
bit of
work
pain now?
Yeah. So,
and it doesn't have to be pain.
Sure.
Slight discomfort.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be home at 7:00 to watch Jeopardy. Oh, well, it's go do something else. Go do something to help your future.
Yeah. And consistency, I think, is a big part of that as well. So you had mentioned you hear with clients, hey, they work at W-2 and they're not willing to put forth the effort after 5 p.m. Right. They get home, they have dinner, they crack open a cold soda, sit on the couch, watch some Netflix, get a shower, go to bed. And the reality is nothing will change if you just continue to do that. Right. And so if you're not willing to put in that additional effort there, then you're not going to get anything out of it. But the person who puts in 1 hour, that after they get home, they have dinner, they watch a little bit of TV with the family, and they carve out 45 minutes or an hour to analyze deals or try and find off-market properties or educate themselves, reading boring things or talking to ChatGPT. That's one of my new favorite pastimes. Literally just having full-on conversations with ChatGPT, right? If you're not willing to do that, then this isn't for you. It's not. And that's okay. And hey, more for the rest of us, right? So I think that is something to consider, is defining your why and are you willing to put forth the effort? Because if you're not, the why is not going to matter. You're not going to follow through if you're not willing to put forth the effort.
Success has never attacked anyone. Yeah.
I guess one of the last kind of dangers, right, is burnout due to misaligned goals, unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations, that's a big one, right? In the society that we live in with social media, and you've got 23-year-olds that are, paying to stand in front of a private jet and renting a Lamborghini to have the look, or you have real 24-year-olds who are crypto multimillionaires that have those things. That is what a lot of people have, is that unrealistic expectation. Right. And again, related back to something else, you look at, people who get into fitness. Okay, they expect that they're going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right? It takes a lot of energy, effort, and a long time to get there. So having realistic expectations is very important. And so setting the bar at what you think is reasonable, but reasonable and attainable, but requires a significant amount of effort above and beyond where you are now is where you want to be. And then you're going to raise that bar and raise the bar and raise the bar. We don't want to set the bar on day one at 64-foot yacht and a Bugatti, right? Unless you're that kind of person. And there are those kinds of people, right? There are those super hyper laser focused starter go-getter types of people that need that large of a goal to even think that it's worthwhile to motivate them. But that's not, the everyday average person. So let's talk a little bit about some possible exercises to help define the why, to bring the why out of you. So if you envision your ideal life, and again, I loved your mentor using the monetary $2,500. If I gave you $500 for a car, $500 for a vacation. So envision your ideal life. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? Are you still working? Is it part-time? Is it full-time? If you have children, are you just a full-time parent? Or at the very least, are you more involved on a daily basis with your kids? So envisioning your ideal life can really set the stage for your why and the how to get there. Another big one is to calculate your freedom number. How much money would it take annually, monthly, weekly to replace whatever income that you have to walk away from your job and to set you up to be at the point where you're able to live the life that you would like? I think that's another really motivating one. And a lot of people would be surprised. The number's a lot smaller than you would think.
Yep.
A lot of people are like, oh man, that would take hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, then you sit there and you add it up and you go, well, look, I still want to work. I still want to do something, right? And so if I were to be managing a couple of my own properties and be working part-time doing this, I could easily make $120,000 a year. Well, that's more than I'm making right now working full-time. I think we have another question.
With all of the resources that are out there on the internet, how do you find something that's trusted and that you don't get lost in analysis paralysis?
Well, I think that's two separate questions there. So it's kind of like how do you pick through all the static that's out there and find the golden nuggets, right? And then how do you use those golden nuggets to actually take action versus getting stuck with something that's going to mislead you or misguide you, right? Well, it's a hard question. It's a good one because there is a lot of information out there.
There is.
And it's prolific amount of get rich quick type of information. John, do you have a?
Yeah. So have I done everything that mentor counseled me on? No. Have I done some of those things? Yes. I also had another mentor in business that I've done a couple things so the best advice I could give would be evaluate as much as you can. Don't spend 12 hours a day just researching the best ways to be the best person, but take a look at some people around you that are succeeding, find out a couple nuggets from them and adapt them to your lifestyle. And then take a nugget from this person and adapt that to your lifestyle, and take a couple nuggets from a couple different successful people that are where you want to be, not your Uncle Joe who tells you that this is the way, you need to bury it in the backyard and you'll be fine in 50 years. That's not where you want to be. Pick the person, pick a couple people that are in a place you want to be and pick their brains. I mean, no, everybody loves talking about themselves. Let them go and let them tell you.
I would imagine we'd have a follow-up question of how do you meet those people, network with those people, and and get yourself into a position where you can ask that of them, right?
So, birds of a feather. You don't find unhealthy people uh, hanging out with a bunch of meatheads at the gym. You don't find a bunch of gardeners hanging out at a car meet in the parking lot at Sheets. It's just birds of a feather. Find, wherever there are people that, real estate investment meetups. They're all over the place. Just visit one. Talk to a couple of the folks that are there. Um, Go to where successful people in real estate tend to hang out.
Yeah.
And again, the meetups, there's just go on a meetup, the website meetup, and you'll find some in your area, and just go to one or two of the meetings, and I guarantee you'll find somebody that you can relate to.
That's good advice. I think Bigger Pockets has been a guiding light for a lot of people in this space and their forums. Also, I would say that you have to approach everything with a modicum of scrutiny, especially just in the world we live in. I think John's point of, hey, seeing is believing is a very good approach. If you see someone who is in this space, who is successful, who is, achieving and doing the things that you're trying to do, it's going to be one of the most reliable sources.
Yeah.
But word of caution, there are people who appear that way. You get the Bernie Madoffs of the world, right? So you approach everything with a modicum of scrutiny, and always trust but verify. That's something that I kind of live by, is that if somebody tells you something, you can take it at face value, but double check it.
Yep.
And also a full disclaimer for ChatGPT as well. Trust but verify, because you will get some wrong information there as well. So we talked about envisioning your ideal life. We talked about calculating your freedom number. Then you got to decide on your timeline, right? So that's another big one, because again, some people, you might have Ricky Rentroll at 32 years old who wants to retire by 55. Well, that's, it's 23 years. It's a pretty good, goal. It's realistic too, right? You have to be realistic. Again, getting back to that kind of managing your expectations, not having the goal of being a Bugatti in a 64-foot yacht in 6 months. You have to be realistic with the goal. So what sacrifices are you then willing to make that goal happen? Because it's very different. It's a very different scenario if the goal is 23 years from now versus 3 years from now.
Yep.
And both might be obtainable, both might be realistic, but they just look very different, right, from a sacrifice perspective, what it's going to take to get you there. You're then going to need to assess your current resources, right? So do you have more time than money, or do you have more money than time? And you and I both see this with people. We see younger kids especially have a lot of time, not so much money. Okay, well, now that you know that you have that resource, are you willing to leverage it? So are you willing to trade your time for a return in some other way? That could be driving for dollars. It could be, just sitting and doing analysis online and searching for houses and finding something that's of value and bringing it to somebody who has money. Yep. Now you've made a little something for yourself. The inverse, we see a lot of physicians in our area, right? We have 2 major health networks in our area, large 6-figure paying jobs, huge tax burdens, and they're working crazy hours. Yep. So they have no time, but they've got deep pockets, and they need to put that somewhere, and they need the tax incentives, and they need to, they need to spend money. And so that is a perfect person that could partner with that person that has a lot of time, right? So really assessing your resources. And then knowledge is a resource. That's one that is really overlooked. Like, a lot of people look strictly at time and money. Knowledge, in my opinion, is the most valuable, because if you have knowledge, you can leverage it for time or for money. And I have seen people that have contributed nothing other than information and get paid, or get paid out of a deal. So after you've assessed your current resources, you've decided on a timeline, you've outlined what your number is, and you kind of have an idea what your ideal life is. you need to create your why statement, right? Why are we doing this? My goal is to use real estate for X so I can Y. My goal is to use real estate to build connections so I can leverage knowledge. Now that's a very broad statement in my mind because it's not, I wanted real estate to do this, this, and this and have 5 houses and retire early. But it's meant to be a broad statement because it allows it to be flexible. It's not finite. I want to use, my goal is to use real estate to build connections so I can leverage knowledge. So that's my why statement. I think we had another question as well.
We do have another question from the audience, and it's, how do you recommend using your why to form both long-term and short-term goals that work together?
Yeah. Well, I think that the first thing is that you constantly need to be reevaluating your goals because the short term or the long term today might be the short term, tomorrow. So you might set a 1 year or 3 month goal, a 6 month goal, and a 1 year goal. And then you get to month 9. Well, you're going to need a new goal that's not just 3 months away at 1 year, right? But your why statement, your why is your North Star. This is the direction or the bearing that I'm going. There's going to be twists and turns and obstacles along the way, but so long as you have that North Star, you're going to be able to navigate those waters. The goals, short term and long term, are your headings or are your bearings, right? They are the twists and turns that you're making to navigate through these obstacles and through these waters. And so using your North Star, your why statement, it's very easy to come up with a long-term goal because it will probably very likely mimic your why statement. So for me, my why statement is using real estate to build connections so I can leverage knowledge. Well, in my mind, that long-term goal means that I'm very well networked and connected with a lot of different people in a lot of different areas. And I have a wealth of knowledge available to me, either internally or externally through those people. So if that's my long goal, my short-term goals are then, okay, well, I need to be in a room where there's people that I can network with. I need to reach out to people. I need to be visible to other people. And that's probably why I'm sitting at this desk today and talking into a microphone. So I think that might answer the question. Using your why statement as your North Star, using your long-term goals as the milestones along the way, and the short-term goals as the small corrections to your bearing as you're going through those waters.
I think as you take your assessment, kind of as you said, how much money do I have? Do I have more time than money? What are the resources I could leverage for that? Once you identify all of those, it'll help you define the how. Your short term, you have short term and long term whys, right? What I'm doing this right now because I want to. Met a guy 3 weeks ago. His goal was to have enough money to replace his W-2 income. He now has tens of thousands of units, and his new why is to provide affordable housing for underprivileged as a philanthropic program. So I think once you define all your resources, I have this much money, I have this much time. A reasonable goal for me would be to do 3 houses a year, three properties a year. That'll help you develop that tactical approach to the strategic long-term goal, as opposed to saying I want to have 150,000 doors in the next 10 years. Is that achievable?
I hate those why statements. Why? Because I want to have 100 doors.
Exactly.
That's not a why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's a result of
what should be a why.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I would say be very careful in your why statements, short term and long term. make sure they mesh, and keep that, keep it fluid, right? Keep that ever changing, that evolving that we talked about. I think that is critical, to making sure that they're attainable, like you said.
I wanted to tag on something you said, reminded me about when we were talking about taking an inventory of your resources too, right? So what if you don't have time or money, right? So I kind of addressed it in a roundabout way. Then knowledge is your best friend, right? If you don't have time to invest and go and find deals and network with people and do all these things, and you don't have a pile of cash sitting around at home, knowledge is your best friend, because knowledge can be obtained so readily and freely in today's age, and it can be digested on your time at home while you're, and there's literally no excuse for it. You can be taking a shower in the morning and have your phone playing in the background, and learning and educating yourself. So I think that is something that you always have to keep in mind, is if you don't have time, you don't have money, knowledge is going to be your best friend. Do we have any other questions on the call?
No other questions at this time.
All right. I think we brought it into the home stretch. So we'll see if there's any other questions that come in, but I think that kind of brings us to the end of today's show. So we want to thank John for being here, as well as Sean over at Contour Mortgage for sponsoring today's show. We thank you, Sean, and appreciate you. We're going to put some links in the posts on YouTube and Spotify that you can check out some resources we're going to make available, as well as links to Contour Mortgage for any of your lending needs.
Looks like we might have a question.
How can we connect with you guys to learn more if we wanted to?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn would be great ways to go about reaching out to us. We will be redesigning our website in the near future, and we will be introducing a school platform, that's SKOOL, where we will have a forum and community, as well as long form content that is going to go into the nitty gritty of a bunch of different topics, all the way from basic to advanced real estate investing.
And Matt, you mentioned a topic 2 weeks from now. Can you remind the group what that was?
Yep. So 2 weeks from today, same time, is going to be a topic of delayed gratification. So we touched on a little bit today, but essentially,
You're going to have to wait 2 weeks for it.
yeah, it's delayed gratification. Yep. So I love that. We're going to leave it at that, actually. Any other questions, Ashley?
No other questions.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
Have a great night.
Keep it classy.